like always center the animals. The animals are what make people go vegan and stay vegan.
Welcome to the Hen Report from our hen house. I'm Jasmin Singer.
I'm Mariann Sullivan.
And I'm excited to be back. I've been away for a little while. Mariann, thank you for kind of holding down the fort.
It was really Michael who held down the fort.
Thank you, Michael. Did he wear
Michael
like
Dorff,
a black...
He came in here and he pretended to be you.
Did he wear like a Black Liza Minnelli wig while he was... Because it feels very him to do that. Yeah, I'm super grateful and really missed it too, even though it was just a few weeks. The end of my play came and went, and I had a bit of an existential crisis, and then I had a medical procedure done, which was something that I've been looking forward to. So it's all good, which I'll talk about a little bit more later as it's related to one of our articles, sort of. But
that's something for everybody to look forward to. Really, there's nothing people enjoy more than hearing about other people's medical issues.
I want to talk about the protein is what I want to talk about, not like the drains. You know what I'm saying? But just a quick reminder that Rising Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays, the Hen Report on Thursdays, and the long-form interview on Fridays. Bonus for Flock members comes out on Mondays. And remember, we are on YouTube. We're also a podcast on all of the listening platforms that you know and love. So hit subscribe and like wherever you listen. So I wanted to tell you that I don't even think I told you that the official announcement just happened, but I am officially a thrift-fluencer for the Goodwill of the Finger Lakes.
It's so you. Oh my God.
They just announced it. And what makes me so excited about it is that in my interviewing for it, in my application, I talked about veganism and how I really want to kind of bring a vegan lens to it a little bit. So I plan on doing that and talking about for
people
vegan.
Who aren't, I mean, this will be on social media, so people could follow it even if they're not.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because this is the local Goodwill.
It's not hyper local, but local-ish. You know, it still includes like Ithaca and Syracuse and just the Finger Lakes area. And I love this organization. I love the work that they do.
You love the clothes that they sell.
I do. I've really enjoyed emceeing the gala for the last couple of years, and I'm so excited to be. I'll be making videos of what I'm finding at Goodwill, how I'm using it, how I'm upcycling it.
What you always do, making videos of your new outfits, only you only send them to me. Now you can send them to other people too.
Yeah, but I might need to edit it a little bit more but maybe not. Maybe I'll just be like, hey, Mariann. That'll be weird. Anyway, so do you want to start with the meat tick?
Well, I don't know. I organized the articles we have to talk about, things that we should just mention, then some good news that we should mention, and then we have like a kind of serious discussion in depth about veganism and a recent article. So somehow the meat tick ended up at the top of the list. So
I love it.
I'll talk about it. You've probably heard of the meat tick. We've all heard of the meat tick. It's this tick. And if it bites people, it causes alpha-gal syndrome, and that means that you become allergic to meat, red meat. Fortunately, not all meat. This is a sad story. I mean, I don't mean to sound like I'm celebrating that, but the first death has been recorded from alpha-gal syndrome. Just this poor guy who went on a camping trip. He was 47. It was in New Jersey. So these ticks have gotten pretty close. Yeah. I mean, they've gradually been going up the U.S., but apparently they're basically here. And then he first reacted to a steak, and 2 weeks later he ate a hamburger and he died. So this is serious stuff. And, we all know about it. I bet not a lot of meat eaters haven't heard about it because, they don't pay attention to this sort of thing. So tell them.
Yeah, I have a vegan friend who didn't know about it. I think she's a vegan for the animals, but she's not particularly plugged into the animal rights scene, and she doesn't really follow the news. And she found out about it and was like flipping out like it was science fiction or something. And
it sounds like science fiction.
Yeah, it totally does. It does, right? It does. But anyway, yeah, 47, how old I'll be this year, from New Jersey. Me
And
too.
yeah, I mean, he must have been in decent health if he was going on a camping trip. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
poor dude, but poor animals that he ate also.
Well, yeah, but
So
I'm not going to go
stop
into
eating
like
meat, people.
meat shaming this guy who just died. I mean,
Fine.
like
I maybe
kind of,
kind of a little bit.
kind of.
Okay.
I normally don't mind meat shaming people,
I just
but I
I
mean,
will
the guy
let's just
died.
move on. Let's let that lie and let's
Yeah,
move
I
on.
think we've said enough about it. And then I
Me
also
too.
wanted to mention just in random news. This is a good article, so this could go in good news because I like to do good news separately. But
Hmm.
it's not good, the news itself isn't good. But this is a great article. It's from the New York Times. It's from their climate section. Is grass-fed beef really better for the climate? And everybody believes that. But everybody thinks that if they just pay more for meat, it means it doesn't do all the harm, which is completely nonsensical. And people will pay more for grass-fed beef and think they're doing something good. It is better for the animals. Uh, it's not better for the
Yeah.
climate. I mean, all of
I
that. As you know, I mean, this has been known within the movement for a long time, but it's nice for it to be in the New York Times.
Yeah, I found this in the middle of the night. I haven't really been sleeping well, just like busy brain. But I read this in the middle of the night, like squinting, like with no light on, and my glasses were on my nightstand, and I'm like, am I reading this right? It actually talked about the land use issue and how, and like no one ever talks about that. Like how, like even if you want to do this for whatever asinine reason, you can't scale it. So as we say, and I think I'm quoting you here, uh, unless we want a world where the rich eat animals and the poor eat nothing, we
Right.
have got to come up with a way to transition to a plant-based society, or a largely plant-based society, for people who, for whatever reason, aren't going to go fully vegan. But I hope they do. And
There's been research done. One of the researchers is Gidon Eshel. I feel like he was on the podcast like a
yeah,
really long time ago.
sounds
And
really
they did
familiar.
research about whether, because there's this argument from the regenerative people that the grazing of the animal stores carbon in the soil and that makes up for everything and actually makes it all better. And so they did the research. We wanted to see
Mm.
exactly how the numbers add up. Dr. Eschel said the bottom line answer is that they mostly don't. That
Yeah.
doesn't make up for it. It doesn't make it better. It's just it's a disaster. Taken together, meat and dairy production use 80% of agricultural land.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. You
So,
know what
but
happened? You know
good
what
to see it
happened?
in the Times.
Yeah, I have to tell you just real quick, since last we spoke, I was on Facebook and I saw someone on, like, my neighborhood has like a
Yeah,
group,
yeah.
but
One of
my
those one
dogs
of
are
those
barking.
crazy
Yeah,
Facebook
I don't
groups.
know if
Yeah.
you're going to be able to hear them, but they're going to be barking for a while because Moore is about to leave. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
because once your dogs start barking,
They
they
just,
like to
like,
keep
that's
it
what
up
they
for a
do.
month or
Yeah,
two. Yeah.
several hours at least. Anyway, so I saw someone comment on Facebook on this, like, neighborhood group that, like, does anyone know anyone with, like, backyard birds, because he wants to get their eggs from them because he no longer wants to support the culling of the male chicks. And some people were like, such and such, this and that, yada yada, but, like, of course they were all bullshit. And I DM'd him and I was like, hey, I just want you to know, like, Just Egg is the way to sidestep all of that, and I think it's pretty great. And I said, if you want to know how this killing is part of a bigger industry, let me know. So I was, like, tiptoeing a little bit, and he replied and was like, hey, what do you think about Just Egg, though? Like, I've had some, like, not so great, substitutes. And also, I'm very torn on the fact that there's canola oil in it, because I'm
Oh my
reading a lot
God.
online about
Oh
how it's
my
bad.
God.
And so I reply, and I'm like, okay, I have this guy's good graces at this point. So I reply, and I'm like, I think canola oil is frequently used in baking products and cooking products because it reacts well to high heat, and also, like, it's an oil, like, whatever. Anyway, so and then I said about the backyard birds. Then I was like, by the way, the chicks that the people get the majority of these birds from come from the exact same places as factory farmed birds, and so it is a system that still involves the killing of the male chicks. And I didn't hear back.
That was a
But
dispiriting story.
no, but I don't know
I
if
mean,
it
I
was.
was thinking great activism until you got to the
No,
end.
you know
No,
what?
still
I'm
thinking great
missing like
activism, but as usual,
you were
yeah,
giving.
you never know when you've made
You
an
were listen,
impact.
Mariann. You were giving me the hurry up vibe, and so I kind of cut it short. There were a few other back and forths. That
Oh,
was
that
like
was
the
only when you were talking about the, I don't know.
canola
So,
oil.
yeah.
Okay. The last, the last correspondence we had, I said that. And I'm sure I was an annoying vegan, Dave. This was me pretty far outside
You
my
shouldn't be
comfort
sure
zone.
of that. Like, I don't know. It's just an online communication. Like you conveyed everything you had to say. He heard it.
Hmm.
Like, what
Yeah.
more is there to say? He's going to write to you forever, be your pen pal. Like, I think you should chalk that up as a success
Yeah. Well, so
because you
the
don't
reason
know. He's
I'm
probably vegan now. I think that's what you should
sure,
assume.
but the reason I'm mentioning it is because in light of this story, like no one ever really thinks about the scalability, and he wanted obviously the scalability is an enormous issue if you're thinking about backyard birds and if you're thinking about beef, um, grass-fed beef or whatever. And I'm just glad that the New York Times went there. So
All
another
right.
thing I'm glad about
The
is
other
that
reason to do this speed up sign is because we have a lot to cover. So,
yeah, so the last Sunday I was in my recliner, which is where I'm basically living these days. And I was watching CBS Sunday Morning. So anyway, one of the stories is I was watching one of the stories and I saw that you pulled it to talk about today, and I'm so glad you did because it's really charming. So why
yeah,
don't you
I'm
talk
sure a
us
lot of people have heard of this because other people, of course, I hadn't, but other people like see more, see a wider variety of news than I do. It's about this walk for peace. These Buddhist monks, who I think they started in Texas, maybe, and they're going to I don't know where, but somewhere in the mid Atlantic, and they're walking the whole way, and it's going to take a long time. And I don't I haven't I tried to look. I did not see anything in there saying from them that they were vegan or vegetarian, but I saw a lot of people saying that they're vegan, and please, if you're going to bring them food, bring them vegan food. And apparently this has become huge, and they have a dog who's going with them who they rescued. And his or her name is Aloka, and he or she just had to have surgery, unrelated to the walking. Apparently, the walking is totally fine. The dog seems to be enjoying themselves tremendously, and the surgery went fine. So Aloka will be rejoining the monks. Everywhere they go, there are huge crowds greeting them, and I don't know whether they are really messaging a vegan message, but they are certainly messaging a message of peace. And the fact that other people are saying that they're vegan, are bringing the animals into it, I just thought it was very inspiring.
I want to add something that I saw on CBS Sunday Morning when I was watching this story is that they actually have like a little kind of I don't know if a wagon for the dog that they put the dog in, and the dog kind of slowly gets driven while people are walking. And so when they feel like the dog needs to take a break, they put the dog in this, and they showed the dog just whining and like, no, I want to
Oh,
walk, like get me out of
oh,
this. It was really cute, and apparently everywhere they stop, people want to engage with the dog and hug the dog, and like the dog's like there for it. But this had been a stray, I think. I mean, I think
yeah,
as
in
you
another
said.
country. I forget what
Yeah.
country.
And
Yeah.
the dog sort of wound up like hanging out with them and not leaving their side. And they were like, okay, well, this is our dog. But
Yeah.
it's
I
very
think one
sweet.
of
And
the, I should mention, I think one of the monks was very seriously injured. It was hit by a car earlier in the walk, which was a terrible
oh, I
thing.
didn't
I
know
mean,
that.
I've learned most of this from looking at Facebook posts, so
Yeah,
I
I didn't
have
know
an
that.
incomplete and potentially inaccurate view of it, which I shouldn't be
Can you
talking. I should be doing better research,
can you
but
imagine like you
being the
accidentally
person
hit
who hit the monk,
who hit a monk?
yeah.
Oh my God. I did want to share something that I should have shared at the beginning, which is, Moore and I adopt senior dogs frequently. And you might remember that last summer we adopted June, a very, very elderly Chihuahua, who we actually found out was a Chihuahua rat terrier, like a Chihuahua rat terrier. And you were like, I think that actually she might be a rat. Like she sort of looked like a rat. June did pass away. Like a little less than 2 weeks ago. It was like a very fast ending, and we're very lucky that she didn't suffer very much at all. Um, we didn't know she was going to die, but we don't know how old she was. She could have been like 18. So I think, we're as we work through the grief is very different I think grief is very different when you've had a senior dog as opposed to have had a dog. It's a different type of grief. And when I see stories like this, it's really heartwarming. Like I've been completely glued to the YouTube channel and Instagram platform. We Rate Dogs. They do like roundups of these
Yeah.
rescue dogs, and I just keep thinking of little Sweet June, and obviously you have a very senior dog also, and we just always think of it. They're just so friggin' intrepid and resilient and
Yeah, they
like
really are.
trusting, and so I just I'm sending so much love to my little June dog who I miss every day. These dogs who are barking, however,
Yeah,
I'm not
those you can get
missing.
rid of.
Yeah, just there's some monks who might want you to go for a walk with them, guys. All right, let's move on.
All
Let's
right, I
move
wanted
on.
to report on the latest trial in the UK about the beagle rescuers, and we reported a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was longer ago than that, um, of a first. Apparently, there were a bunch of rescuers, and they've been tried in groups of five, and the first five were found guilty, and but this is the second group, and they were acquitted of all charges. And they had rescued 18 beagle puppies from MBR Acres, which is this huge site breeding animals for experimentation and testing. Another branch of which is very near to where we live in Rochester, but this was in the UK, and it was a 7-day trial, and they brought the defense of honesty, which I think might be very similar to the defense of that people have been using in the U.S. of justification, uh, that their theft wasn't dishonest; it was honest. And I mean, I really don't know a lot about it. I'm just reading that from an article, but it sounds like that. And I'm over the moon that there was an acquittal in this case, because
Yeah.
these people could be facing substantial charges. I mean, substantial sentences. And as we saw, when I interviewed Wen Sheng a few weeks ago, his wife was one of the first group of defendants who was tried in that jury. Same facts, same incident. I don't know how they deal with that. Was found guilty, and she's facing, serious jail time, which I hope she doesn't get.
Yeah, no, it's good to see good news around this, especially because I think there's been a lot of energy on our hen house recently about the negative stuff going on. So
Well, it's kind of the world we all live in, isn't
it's
it?
it's awful, yeah, but it's having that kind of reprieve for just a moment of like the breath of fresh air
Yeah.
is great. All right, so let's move on to an article that we read in New York Magazine, which I have to say is very hard to link to. I get it through the news app on my iPhone that I pay like $10 a month for. Really good $10 a month to be spent if you have an iPhone because it shows you like so many different news items. And I wound up like pasting the verbiage for you to read it. So I'm not sure we can link to this directly, but it is called How Veganism Got Cooked. Plant-based eating was supposed to be the future. Then meat came roaring back. It is by Rachel Sugar. I want my last name to be Sugar. So this was an article. I think that there's a lot in it that's really deeply disappointing and deeply disturbing. Um, but when you and I were prepping for this, you certainly acknowledged that that's true, but you did have a little bit more of a
Well,
positive
I thought
take
it
on
was
it than I did.
realistic. I mean, not
Yeah.
totally realistic. I didn't agree with everything in here, and I thought the slant on some things. Apparently the author is vegan. Seemed to be somewhat more on either the health or the environmental, which people cling to
Mm-hmm.
so they don't have to go full. But apparently is vegan, so that's something. And a lot
Well,
of it is negative, but a lot of it is true. I mean, there is like come some weird kinds of emphasis. Like she talks about how loads of vegan restaurants have closed, but there's a lot to be in New York City. This is specifically about New York City, though we can assume that some of it is translatable to the country as a whole. And there's a lot of reasons that vegan restaurants might be closing. I also have heard of a lot of them opening, but that she does make the point that it seems like there are fewer than there used to be. There's fewer opening than than closing. But running a restaurant is really hard. Restaurants close all the time. It's not unusual. And a number of points that were made, these were particularly made by Isa Chandra Moskowitz, who was quoted pretty extensively in the piece, that making vegan food is actually pretty labor intensive. Cooking meat is really actually pretty easy. You throw it on a hot fire, and that's how people like it. Uh, that a lot of times vegans or people going to a vegan restaurant, they're not all vegans, of course, but they might be somewhat health oriented. They're likely to drink less. And alcohol is a huge, huge piece of restaurant profitability. Um, uh, Ravi DeRossi, who is closing his restaurants, we've interviewed him before on the podcast. He's always had a million restaurants that he always opens and closes them all the time. But now he's moving on because, one of the reasons he cited is New York City rents. New York City rents are completely insane. And I don't know how anybody would start a business paying those kinds of rents. And I thought you made this point that Nil Zacharias made some really good points. He was also quoted, and like this is a kind of it became very trendy, and trends come and go, and that's just how trends are. I don't think this is all that's going on. I'm just saying, starting off, I would say there's a lot of good reasons to think, other than nobody's vegan anymore, nobody cares about veganism anymore, that this could be happening, that vegan restaurants just aren't happening. One of the points that the author herself makes kind of at the end of the article is that now a lot of restaurants now have omni restaurants have vegan options a lot more than used to. They used to not even understand what it meant. That never happens anymore. And so people don't need vegan restaurants as much anyway. Uh so
Yeah.
so it's depressing, but I don't think it's necessarily unrealistic. But it doesn't list all of those reasons.
Yeah, just to kind of, well, we already spoiled it, but the article concludes, so this is the ultimate spoiler here. In one world, mainstream veganism looks like an explosion of meatless restaurants. In another, meat simply recedes on the menu. You order the vegetables or alternative proteins, traditional or technological, not because you are unusually attuned to animal suffering or climate change or your own cholesterol, but because it's the thing you want. And so that is very aligned with what the vast majority of people in our hen house have been doing. Maybe we all want liberation, we all want animal liberation. I will stop at nothing before we get it. But I am aware that it is the thing you want that is kind of the crux of that paragraph. And as long as we make it the thing people want, then we can still keep fighting forward in the same way we already have been, which can be quite profound. And if this article is judging the growth or lack thereof of veganism largely by the restaurants, then it is a very flawed premise.
I totally agree. I totally agree. That's not, it's one factor, but it's certainly not. I mean, I guess what I feel is that this is a very different situation than we were in 15 years ago, before this kind of boom in vegan restaurants started. People didn't know what it was then. People called it vegan. Like 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 they now everybody will have a vegan, or not everybody, but almost everybody will have a vegan meal once in a while. Some people have vegan meals all the time. Loads of people are trying to increase the amount of fruits and vegetables in their diet, in spite of the new food pyramid, which kind of equates steak with fruits and vegetables. But the new food pyramid is from RFK Jr., who is trusted by a few people and actually not trusted by most people. So I'm not sure it's all such a bad thing. And so I think that it's really important to remember for our activism that we're in a very different place, and whatever activism is called for is probably different than it used to be when we were just trying to give people the idea of what veganism is.
Right.
The other,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I wanted to say that it did talk about, like, obviously there was that huge boom in veganism, and
It was
you know,
trendy.
I remember when my book, The Veg News Guide to Being a Fabulous Vegan, was being shopped around. It was kind of like the perfect time for it to be, because it was right in the middle of that trend, and it was like that we were holding on to some of those numbers like the future depended on it, because we thought it did. And one of those numbers was that, like, the search term for vegan had gone up by 600% in 1 year. And that was the year that we were shopping the book around. And that, that's one of the things that they say is going down. But I'm like, I'm just talking here. I'm certainly no scientist, but I do know that a lot of younger people do not use labels. It's kind of like the Gen Z way of life. Like, I follow this one influencer on YouTube, who, she by and large is vegan. I'm the one labeling her that. She is an environmentalist. She uses lots of no waste products. But I do notice that she has, like, wool balls for her in her dryer. Like, so is that vegan? No. But I guess my point is, she's not the one labeling herself vegan, and it was inappropriate that I did, if you're using the, like, our definition of veganism, because she's using an animal product, but she probably doesn't use any other animal products than that. And and so, is she going to be counted in these stats? No. If she's indicative of an entire generation, then again we have a flawed premise. So maybe this was a little bit clickbaity. Like, maybe veganism being down, in its rankings is inherently clickbaity.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that people like to hear. I didn't think it was totally unfair, but there were some things in it that I thought were the kind of thing that people want to hear. And the other thing that they talked about was which I think is worth thinking about, is how vegan meats took off like a bat out of hell and then really crashed. And both Impossible and Beyond are now, doing really, really struggling. And I think there are reasons for that 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 it's worth looking at. Most vegans are motivated by health. Some are motivated by the environment, and the animals kind of come in third. Well, if you're a health vegan or you're an environmental vegan, why would you eat a Beyond? Like, why you don't have to go totally vegan? Like, there's no concept of the necess. For us, it's like, well, every animal matters. It's like, for them, the argument is
Right.
much for total veganism as opposed to just cutting down is much more obscure. And
Yeah. Why would you need to do it
so who
if
is
that was the
buying these
case?
meats? I mean, if those people are yearning for a burger, they'll just have meat, you know? So AR vegans buy them. There aren't enough of us to support that business. And I don't think the case has been made for the world at large that they have to like cut out meat. So when they want meat, they have meat. I do think the case has been made that they should cut down on it. I mean, not that everybody does that. And of course, the article does point out that they're still selling a really lot of meat. But I don't think there's any question that people are more conscious than they used to be. Just no question at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. All
And you know
right.
what annoyed me particularly? She talked about celebrities and she mentioned a whole bunch of them, Beyonce, who I'm not sure was ever vegan, and Lizzo, who was, and a whole bunch of other ones. And among them was the singer. Who's
Miley
this?
Cyrus.
No, 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 the good one. Um
Oh.
I can't
Uh,
remember her name, which is terrible because she's the one who stayed vegan passionately. Um,
I don't know who
uh,
you're talking about. Sorry.
oh, with the brother, the one with the
Oh,
brother,
Billie Eilish.
Billie
Jesus
Eilish.
Christ. Holy crap. Okay.
Just this big quote from Lizzo about how she's thinking more clearly, or that she's eating meat, or some bullshit. And they don't talk about, well, Billie Eilish actually did it for the animals and she's
Right.
still vegan. Like why quote only the person who gave it up, and only the person who was only worried about their own health.
Yeah.
So that was I was
I
very annoyed with that. So what do you
yeah.
What are
I
your
want to move what?
what are your activism takeaways from thinking in this way, which I think is realistic of that, yeah, people aren't going vegan, but people are eating more vegan food and maybe will go vegan at some point. People aren't thinking about the animals because it's too hard for them to do that for some reason. I'm not talking about everybody, but it's in the world now. The meat industry, no matter what it does, cannot toss it out. They have to malign it. So what are
Yeah.
the activism
I like
takeaways?
I will tell you that based on what I said a few minutes ago, I think that a good activism way forward here is exactly what people are doing. I mean, like if we aim for veganism and we try and bring people to veganism and people wind up eating more vegan, then you
Yeah,
could consider that a
yeah,
win.
totally.
And and so I don't know if much needs to change in terms I think that and I'm only realizing this through our conversation. I think that the thing needs to change is sort of what Neil Zacharias said in this, which is like, don't take these articles that seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw people, I know this is shocking that people on the internet were up in arms, but I saw people like really upset about it. And then I kind of was like, oh, me too, and then I was like, who cares? Like, let's just keep doing the thing we're doing. Like, that's all we can do.
And
I
I
don't mean
think,
who cares like dismissively,
no,
like
I know, of
obviously.
course, of
And
course.
then on a very selfish level, I will say I'm glad I lived in New York City during the height of all this because I got to eat at all of those
There's
amazing
still
vegan
loads of
restaurants.
great vegan restaurants in New York City. I hear
There
people
are.
talking about them all the time. And the last time I
Mhm.
was there, I ate at great restaurants, and it wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago. So,
Yeah.
yeah, some of that is just nonsense. There's lots of great vegan restaurants, and there's probably lots of great vegan options in other restaurants that didn't used to be there, who would look at you like you had two heads if you wanted something vegan. And
Yeah.
and I think one of the most important thing to remember is this is not backwards. This is the next phase. And things go up and down, and this is the next phase, and that's what we've got to deal with. I mentioned to you, I want us to have a plan to go out to dinner once a week and pick a restaurant at random, not checking to see what they have, and just go and either be delightfully surprised that they have a good vegan thing on the menu, or if they don't, just order around, be really nice, but just make it clear like we're very disappointed. I know that that's not real activism. That's just an excuse to go out to eat, but
I
but it's
understand your
kind of
point.
activism, and maybe I
I
can translate it into more of an attitude. And the other thing is like always center the animals. The animals are what make people go vegan and stay vegan.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Mhm. And I do like to eat out, but I want to kind of be a little more discerning about it, I think, even though I do understand where you're coming from,
Oh,
and
it'll
I
be
don't think
fun.
you're
We
wrong.
can have cocktails.
Okay.
Very
Let's
frequently vegan,
That's true.
not always.
All right, let's move on. Why don't you walk us through these next stories?
Oh, these are just uh, things I thought were interesting, and that people might want to. We'll put a link in the show notes. People might want to check them out. One is this. Is I had seen this message from TK Pillen, who was one of the founders of Veggie Grill. Is working on this project, and I'm not sure what he's going to do with it or what other. I mean, I don't think it's just him doing it. He has partners as well, and it's called Prioritize Plant Protein. And I heard that and I thought that is a good message because the meat industry has done a really great job in convincing people that they need enormous amounts of protein. But I don't, but they, even on the meat industry sites, and I'm one of the few people who reads the meat industry sites pretty regularly. They don't call it meat anymore. They call it protein. They just push protein. Well, we've got protein too. And I think a lot of people might be open to the idea that, yeah, plant protein is healthy.
Right. And this is where I wanted to mention what I alluded to before about like the medical procedure I had done. And like I don't want to get into what it was or why. So sorry if you're wondering, but I'm fine. I will tell you that I was advised to significantly step up my protein, which is not my dogs are whining, sorry, but which is not something that I've ever really paid attention to because I, in my 22 years of being vegan, have never been protein deprived or anything close to that. But I decided to start paying attention to it because they told me get 100 grams a day.
Your dogs
I
are
know.
so
I
annoying.
know, it's because more left to like take
Yeah, well,
Murray to.
that's a good reason to become hysterical. Whenever
I
more leaves the
know.
room, I become
I'm
hysterical.
sorry. Yeah. Anyway, so I was told to get 100 grams of protein for someone my size. It's a lot, but I was like, I can do it, and I can, and I did. And the surgeon had like, was very skeptical that it was possible, and it's easy. It's not only easy, but I'm sort of enjoying it. Like it's kind of fun. It's not just protein powder. There's plenty of days that I don't have protein powder. So I just wanted people to know, like I am proof positive that as a non, bodybuilder, it is still very, very possible and not difficult to get 100 grams of protein or however much you want. That is a significant amount. And I really like this plant protein focus too. I
Yeah,
think it's a cool pivot.
yeah, I think people can hear that. I don't know. What do I know? And on the same line, GFI, Good Food Institute, just put out in November this report on messaging to drive consumer adoption of plant-based meat. And this is a fairly long report. I haven't examined it in detail, but they've done a lot of research on, and a lot of this is focused, though I think rather than calling it plant-based meat, I mean in your advocacy, not in this report, but calling it plant protein is the way to go. But they've really done a deep dive into plant-based meat messaging angles, and I think this is great information for any activist. So we will link to that in the
Yeah, show notes. I
and
agree.
their four big messages on a health basis are gut health, heart health, antibiotics, and protein. And I think protein should be at the top of that list because people are protein obsessed. Why not take advantage of it? All right, just one more article that I thought people would find reassuring after we just brought everybody down with talking about that New York Magazine article. On Vegeconomist, Google searches for veganism outpace those for climate change. Well, I don't know whether that's good or bad, actually, because it might just mean that nobody's searching for climate change. Well, but this is the thing. Flexitarianism is now mainstream globally. And polling across 10 countries indicates that while veganism remains uncommon, flexitarianism is now mainstream, with 16 to 30% of the population across 10 countries identifying as flexitarian. I think that is totally in line with everything we've been saying. And, it's just, I think, been hard for everybody in this movement to do that pivot because flexitarianism just is like, what? like it's okay to kill just a few animals instead of a lot of animals? Like what? But sometimes we got to look at the way things are going and work with that. And it doesn't mean that we ever have to betray our own principles and say it's okay to eat a few animals, but we can encourage people to
Exactly.
cut down.
Well, that's what I was saying before. Or we can encourage people to go vegan and they will
Yeah, and they'll
inevitably,
do what they want to do. Yeah,
right.
people don't always do what you tell them to do, I've found.
Shocking. They always do what you tell them to do, Mariann.
Oh, wouldn't the world be a nice place? It
So
really
why don't you
would.
tell them to watch Christspiracy
Oh
now?
yeah. Just an announcement. If you haven't seen Christspiracy yet, I think I mean, it can be a tough watch in places, but the stuff on Christianity I thought was as interesting as anything I've ever seen in this movement. I mean, fascinating, and it's now available for free online. So we'll give you a link. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. Whether it's a temporary, it looks like it's a temporary offer, but so if you haven't seen it, I recommend it.
Yeah, and another announcement. We're so thrilled to give a heartfelt shout out to End of the Line Cafe in Pensacola, Florida, courtesy of our amazing flock supporters, Sheila Ward and Ray Harry. This vegan gem has been serving up scratch-made, plant-powered deliciousness since 2002. Take
They
that,
haven't gone out of
New Yorker
business.
article.
Yeah.
Exactly. Take
And
that, New
also it
Yorker.
just sounds like they're making like good delicious food. Like that's a method for a successful restaurant.
And by the way, I just said New Yorker article, but it's
New
the
York Magazine.
New York Magazine. So take that, New York Magazine. And also Vicky insists it's one of her all-time favorite vegan hotspots, and she's like kind of a tough critic, so I would pay close
Yeah.
attention to her recommendations. She especially raves about their legendary pink potato salad and says that's absolutely worth planning a Florida road trip for.
That's a
So
pretty high bar for me.
yeah.
I don't
So
know.
whether
What do you
what
suppose makes it pink?
I think potatoes can be kind of pink.
No.
I don't know.
No, I don't
Well,
think it's that the potatoes are pink. I think just the potato salad is pink.
yeah, I don't know what makes it pink. I just know what makes me want to eat it, which is that it's in front of me and it's vegan.
I want to know what
But
makes
whether
it
you're
pink.
local or you're just passing through Pensacola, treat yourself to something from their mouth-watering 100% vegan menu. So check them out at eotlcafe.com. Tell them that Our Hen House sent you. And again, it's End of the Line Cafe in Pensacola, Florida. So thank you so much to Sheila and Ray also. Now, while we're on the subject of cool opportunities, I do want people to know that there is an upcoming webinar that's totally free that you can go to if you'd like. And it is called The Compassion Mandate with author Neil Dulligan. And it's coming up on Monday, the 26th of January. And we will link to that. But it is about remaking the European Union's leadership on farmed animal welfare. And you are going to be interviewing him soon for the Animal Law podcast. But you know, it's always these types of webinars are cool to attend, even if it's like on in the background while you're cooking or whatever. We will link to how you can register. But again, it's the Compassion Mandate. And it's a new book by Neil Dulligan, and this
No,
date
I think
is
I haven't looked into it yet, but I think it kind of tackles the problem. How when I was first coming up in animal law, Europe was, definitely at the forefront of welfare reforms. And I think maybe it still is, but not a lot has happened since then.
yeah, agreed. So that is coming up on January 26th. That's really soon. All right. Before we close, I just want to thank all of you for helping us to make our match this year. It's another strong year of our hen house. Mariann, happy our hen house anniversary. It is our 16th anniversary. Our hen house is now a driver. If our hen house was a human, it would be driving now, is my point. So,
And
but
we would be
thankfully,
so worried every time it went out at night. It's only
but
16.
But we have nothing to worry about because we have such a wonderful global community of listeners and flock members. And so we just want to thank you so much for helping us end our hen house and ends 2025 for our hen house on a big high note. And we're entering 2026 now on a high note as well. And that's thanks to you. So thank you so much. Don't
Can I just
forget
say,
that,
it
yeah,
really doesn't feel like 16 years ago that we were sitting in that pizza parlor in Philadelphia, which was the coldest weekend I've ever lived through, and thought,
yeah,
well, maybe we should do a podcast.
yeah. Does it feel like less time or more
Oh,
time?
less time. Less time.
Mm,
But when I think of like how much, you know how time is. And you think of it one way and it seems like yesterday. You think of it another way. And you think of like all
yeah,
that's happened between then and now. And it seems like forever ago. Time is just
yeah.
weird.
It is. It's super weird. Yeah, and we were visiting Philadelphia for that weekend. We were living in New York City at the time. I was 30. And I don't know. It's just amazing. I'm just so grateful to our listeners and to you, Mariann, for putting up with me every week. Or multiple times a week. Now that we're on multiple times a week, Rising Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays, the Hen Report on Thursdays, and the long form interview on Fridays. This week's interview, why don't you talk briefly about this week's interview, Mariann?
Yeah, it's with Will Kimlicka and Sue Donaldson, who you probably heard of because of their book Zoopolis. They are they're political philosophers. Well, Will is a political philosopher. I'm not sure exactly what Sue classifies her academic category as, but they write about politics. They write about political science, and it's kind of taking it. They take the whole question beyond moral philosophy. Yeah, of course they need rights, but what does that actually mean, and how do you actually accomplish it in the real world? And they've got a new book coming out, "Animals and the Right to Politics," from Oxford University Press, and we had a delightful conversation with them, which will be out on Friday, about all of their thoughts about how we get from here to there, even in this incredibly fraught world.
It was a great interview, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with everyone, as well as their bonus material was also fantastic. So definitely check that out. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you to Vicky Beechler and Jen Riley for their help on this week's episode, as well as just helping us get through the end of last year with our fundraising efforts. We couldn't do this without them, and we couldn't do it without you. We'll talk to you next time.